We move now to the report of the Church of Scotland Investors Trust. Welcome. And I call on the convener. Thank you.
Robert Bergen, Chairman of the Church of Scotland Investors Trust. Moderator, it's my great privilege to present the report on our work during the last year. The Investors Trust was established by Act of Parliament almost 30 years ago. It's a registered charity and accordingly observes the regulations set by OSCR. But it's not regulated under the Financial Services Act, as we don't offer services to the general public. Nevertheless, Investors Trust operates to accepted standards of good practice in the investment industry. A wide range of church investors place money with Investors Trust, from parish church treasurers and trustees of local trusts, right up to our largest investor, the General Trustees. We offer 3 funds: the Growth Fund, which aims to provide good long-term total returns, but which is subject to short-term volatility in prices; the Income Fund, which aims to provide a reliable level of income, but whose unit prices will fluctuate as long-term yields vary; and the Deposit Fund, which provides a high level of capital protection, but pays interest linked to short-term rates in the money markets. We can't provide investors with specific advice, but we do put general guidance on the website to help treasurers and other investors to understand how they could link the purpose for which their funds are held against the characteristics of the 3 funds which we offer. 2022 was not a good year for investors, in a way which would have been hard to predict as the year began. Although it had been expected that price inflation would increase after the COVID lockdowns and as consumers began to spend more, the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February led to higher than anticipated inflation as supplies of certain products became restricted. And it also, as we all know, led to the energy crisis and significant rises in the price of gas and electricity. One outcome was that inflation in the UK rose to levels which had not been seen for 40 years. This led to central banks across the world, but including the Bank of England, trying to control inflation by raising interest rates, a process that continues now, as we saw last week with a further rise announced by the Bank of England. The September mini-budget led to further market uncertainty and had a significant impact on bond markets. Putting all of these things together, the result was that almost all global investment markets experienced negative returns in 2022. Our Growth Fund delivered a total return of minus 9.2%, which was behind the benchmark return of minus 6.7%. And the Income Fund, while still experiencing a negative return of minus 12.16%, outperformed its benchmark for the year by 5.5%. Our total funds fell from £520 million at the beginning of 2022 to £474.5 million at the end of the year, reversing much but not all of the gains which had been experienced in 2021. The first quarter of 2023 has seen some improvement in capital values, especially in the Growth Fund, partly due to a slight easing of inflation and predictions about inflation and interest rate projections going forward. When we met our investment managers earlier this month, we were told that they continue to exercise caution, as there are a number of uncertainties, such as the timing of interest rate cuts, how quickly price inflation falls, and ongoing geopolitical risks in various parts of the world. By the end of March, the total value of our funds had risen to £491.5 million. One positive outcome of the market conditions experienced last year was that investors in each of our funds saw an increase in the level of income they received. Growth fund investors received 12p per unit for the year, which represents an increase of 9% over the previous year. As bond prices fall, the yield that's available increases, and investors in the income fund saw their distributions increase to 47.5p per unit, representing an increase of 18.75% over the income distributed in 2021, and bringing the distribution close to our previous high level of 50p per unit. Deposit fund investors began to see the benefits of rising interest rates after many years when they were close to zero, and the average rate of interest paid rose from 0.08% in 2021 to 1.16% last year. The most recent distribution from the deposit fund for the quarter to 31st March was based on an annual rate of interest of 3.32%. In 2023, we expect that the income from the Growth Fund will be at a similar level to that last year, that we'll be able to increase the income distribution from the income fund even more, and that investors in the deposit fund will see further increases in the rate of interest they receive, as deposits which were placed by our managers in the second half of 2022 come to maturity. We have just heard the report of the Special Committee on Ethical Investment, and commissioners will be aware that they have been working over a process of 2 years. In 2021, the COSIT trustees supported the establishment of that special committee. And over the last 2 years, we've been pleased to engage with Val Brown, the chair, and members of the special committee, and to support the recommendations which were presented to, and I'm delighted to say approved by the General Assembly this afternoon. We look forward to playing an active and positive part in the operation of the Ethical Oversight Committee. And we have our trustees nominated already when we're asked to submit names. The Special Committee recognised that the term ethical investment is complex. It's subject to interpretation, and it's hoped that this new committee will enable meaningful dialogue and debate on the ethics of investment as they apply to our church. This is a subject which we as COSIT trustees take seriously. We have, as you know, a long-established list of excluded sectors, which include things like tobacco and armaments. However, exclusions are only part of the picture. At a recent meeting with the managers of the Growth Fund, they showed us that the portfolio which they manage on our behalf has an ESG quality score which is described as leader. It's in the top 25% of the companies measured, as measured by the Morgan Stanley Capital Indices. And this is a way of showing the ability of underlying holdings to manage key medium to long-term risks and opportunities arising from environmental, social, and governance factors. In another measure, the weighted average carbon density of the portfolio was low, and the portfolio also performed well in measures relating to corporate governance, natural resource management, and waste management. However, none of these measures provides us with any cause for complacency, and there are other elements where further improvements would be desirable. These are the type of issues that we expect to discuss within the framework of the Ethical Oversight Committee. We're not alone as a faith investor, and we are delighted that we have the opportunity in several different places to become involved with other churches which face exactly the same challenges that we face in the Church of Scotland. Our membership of the Church Investors Group gives us access to the approaches taken by other Christian denominations and provides us with valuable information on key issues. My predecessor as COSIT chairman continues to serve on the board of the Church Investors Group, and we have access to information from other agencies, many of which are developing tools to monitor climate change performance by companies. This information allows us to challenge our managers and to agree aspects of investment policy which are not captured by a simple policy of exclusions. During the year, we issued 2 general bulletins to update our investors on performance and to provide an indication of likely income distributions. We plan to continue to communicate in this way, as well as providing updates on the COSIT section of the Church of Scotland website. Before COVID, we organised annual meetings for investors, either during the General Assembly week or shortly thereafter. In September 2022, we organised our first webinar and found this to be a big success. More people participated in that section than the average attendance at our in-person meetings. And the arrangement was particularly useful for investors who would otherwise have had to travel to Edinburgh. While we appreciate that online events don't lend themselves to conversation between participants, and we recognise the value of that, we plan to repeat the webinar approach later this year. The trustees monitor the performance of each of our investment managers at every quarterly trustee meeting. This year, we've had useful discussions with the general trustees, who, as I said earlier, are the largest investor in the COSIT funds, and they have been conducting their own review of their investment policies. Our trustees decided at their meeting earlier this month that this was the right time to undertake a formal review of all of our investment consultancy and management arrangements. The process has started and will continue over the next few months. In accordance with the terms of our Constitution, 2 of our trustees are due to retire by rotation at the end of this month, Robin Black and Gordon Young. I'm pleased to report that both trustees are willing to serve a further term of 3 years, and we recommend that they be reappointed accordingly. Following 10 years of service, Mr. David Campbell has indicated his wish to retire. Mr. Campbell has made an extremely useful contribution to our discussions over that period, and we will miss his input. I want to record in conclusion my thanks to the General Treasurer, our Executive Officer and staff of Investors Trust, who ensure the smooth day-to-day operations of the Trust and are the frontline point of contact for both our investors and our investment managers. Finally, I acknowledge with gratitude the time and effort so freely given by all our expert trustees. Moderator, I submit the report and accounts of Investors Trust for the year to 31st December and place them on the clerk's table. And as I'm not a commissioner, I would ask that the principal clerk moves the deliverance.
Moderator, I move the deliverance.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Questions for the chair? Thank you.
Dot Getliff 451. I'm sorry it's such a big question, but I have to say, as someone who is completely a newbie as far as all this investment is concerned, I have to ask this question. What is the balance between stewardship of resources that God has given us and what Jesus warned us about, and as was spoken about by the ethical investment convener? When does stewardship become love of and reliance on mammon?
Is that a... He's going to go. Okay.
That's a very deep and searching question, which is probably outside my pay grade. I simply chair the Investors Trust, but on a more serious, sorry, let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
On a more serious note, we are guided as trustees by a number of things. We are guided by the charity law under which we operate, which places many obligations on us. But above all, we're guided by this General Assembly and the Church of Scotland. The Church of Scotland and the General Assembly over the years has never been shy to express its views about the type of investments that were appropriate for the Church. And we have laid down very clear guidance for our investment managers. We are very pleased about the establishment of the Ethical Oversight Committee. We have engaged on a regular and active basis with Val and her committee. And quite frankly, I can't wait for that process to start. And I hope it doesn't have to wait for another General Assembly before the process starts. I think that will give us an excellent opportunity to address the issue that you raised today. We try our very best to be ethical in our approach. Mammon doesn't feature in any of our discussions, as I'm sure you would understand. But the process, too, of reviewing our consultancy and management arrangements, which started just a week or so ago, we've already had discussions with potential advisors, and that is one of the biggest issues that we're discussing. What is it that the Church of Scotland is looking for in terms of its investments? So we do take your concerns seriously, and I hope I've gone a little way to address your concerns.
Thank you for your very thorough question or thorough answer, and I believe the Principal Clerk would like to add something to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Moderator, and thank you, Convener, and thank you to the questioner. I think it's important here just to state and restate that the Investors Trust are operating within the civil law and with the duties of trusteeship that are set down in statute and through OSCR. And so this isn't for them to decide the questions that we're talking about. And we've made the decision to create an ethical oversight committee, and that has gone down well. And the deeper questions that the Commissioner has asked are for us all to prayerfully reflect on. So I do commend the trustees for the job that they do, which is legally admirable.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your really thorough answer. Other questions for the Chair? If not, then we will move to Section 1, receive the report. Section 2. Section 3. And the report as a whole, the deliverance as a whole. Thank you. And thank you so very much. Thank you for all the work that you do. So appreciated.